What did I do to get here?
Man, it's like,
but see, if you make it stick and they have to go without, then you realize, oh shoot, I go with. I ain't
But
gonna
it
say
should
that.
be more than a tablet.
It depends. See, it depends.
Like if you bought him a bad report card or something.
I'm gonna be real with you. This generation, everything's about that phone.
Yeah.
Everything's about that phone.
That's why you can't even give it to them to begin with.
Right.
No, but see, what you don't want to do is you don't want them to all of a sudden first time getting it to when they're away in college. Now they don't know how to handle it.
My boy do it. Shoot.
But see, limited. I call it limited liability. You give it to them a certain amount of time because they're used to it. It's not a novelty. It's not something that's special. They use it, but they know that okay, I can't use this 100% of the time. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this. Okay, now after I've done what I'm supposed to do, now I got my time.
Yeah, but I found that, once you get that whooping in, you can tell your kids, hey, sit down. They be like, oh, man. You know what I'm saying? It's like this, respect. I'm not doing it all the time, very rarely.
But see, I think William walked in the house and said, all right, sit down.
Yeah, they all sit down, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
What your mama say?
Yep, they do it. Yeah.
He ain't got to raise his hand, he ain't got to raise his fist, he ain't got to reach for a
the
belt.
girls, my girls, I would say my two girls, 11 and 9, are awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they do exactly what I say. L'Oreal never got over because they do what I say.
But see, I look at Lil William.
Yeah.
Lil William's the same way. But and I know something about Lil William. Yeah, Lil William will, his daddy walks in, he'll say, do something, he'll do it. Mama say, do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The daddy come in, what your mama say?
Yeah, he does.
Then he does it, right? So
Yep.
he has that command. I mean, he is there. It's that respect is there. He earned that respect. He taught his son that respect.
But I think our kids get bigger and bigger, and they eventually will be like,
He get
slower.
bigger.
He'd be like, man.
But they've already learned.
Once he does that.
They've already learned.
Yeah.
The Bible says, teach a child in the way they should go, and they're young. When they get older, they will not depart from it.
See, so the thing, like my boy, it'll just remind me of what my pops did with me too. Like, so, even though the phone is such a big thing, and you take that phone away, but you keep them busy doing something, whether it's chores, whether it's working out, making them do push-ups. They got to keep their mind just going on something positive. It ain't necessarily just taking your phone and just making you sit on the couch. I'm going to take your phone and you're going to mop this basement. You got to clean this bathroom up. I need that grass cut.
Make them feel it.
And, and he distilling them principles in me, but even though I'm not knowing it at the time, but now I'm older.
You learn that you got to work from what your dad told you.
Yeah, because when you get your own crib, it just come in like, I got to clean my bathroom. I got to cut this grass.
But see, he just reminded me
go
of
to
something
whooping.
that...
Then the pain comes.
Then the pain comes.
Right. Now, I'm
in order to get them,
See, now you just brought something to mind that when I was on the Manosphere, I didn't see it. Right?
Okay.
And what I saw on there was making excuses, blaming everybody else.
Yeah.
That's what I saw.
Yeah.
Right? You get on there making excuses and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But what I don't see and what I need to see, and I'm seeing it with my kids raising their kids, is the fact that, okay, telling my son, look, you got to get a good education. Why? Because you got to get a good job. Why? Because you got to raise a family one day. Why? Because this is what a man's supposed to do. So now his son, guess what? By the time he's in the 10th grade, he would have completed A, B, B, C calculus. The only math he'll be able to take after that is college level, is at a college.
Yeah.
And that's how he's raising his kids. And his son says, okay, that's what I got to do, right? His son wins all kinds of writing contests. Why? Because he figured that's what I got to do because I'm a man, and this is what's expected of me as a man. Now, if we all taught our children, our sons that way, how many of them would be going to college? How many of them would be having good jobs?
Right.
But are we doing that?
No.
In the Manosphere, when they get on there, what I see is, well, they ain't doing you right, they wrong, blah, blah, blah. They're giving excuses they're giving them excuses for being a failure. It's okay, it's not your fault. You failed but that's not your fault. No, dude, you screwed up, you didn't get your education, and now you sit back crying because nobody wants you as a husband because you can't support them.
Yeah.
See, a kid supposed to be so busy. This is my opinion.
Yeah.
And the kids I seen make it to something good. They was always so busy they didn't have time to be on their phone.
Right.
They ain't have time to
But
play on the
sometimes have
tablet.
changed though. But most things that now, like for
Because-
That's
example,
lazy parenting, I think. If you
It
just,
is.
just give them a tablet and just be like, go do that while I
oh
do
no, you can't do that.
Yeah,
You can't do
because
that.
it's always something to do around the house. Either you got chores. If you ain't doing chores, you're involved in some type of sports activity.
Yeah,
You studying.
right.
You're doing your homework.
Yeah.
You gotta make them because sometimes they be like, I don't
But
want
you
to.
gotta
My
teach-
friends
but see-
not doing.
but see,
Then
you
the
gotta teach-
weekend, Saturday,
Right.
now I'm gonna reward you. Play your
Right.
video
But
games.
see,
or
but here's the
something.
thing
You know what
though.
I'm
You got to
saying?
tell your son, or you want to be a winner, then you need to be able to raise a family. You need to be able to get education so you can get a good job. So you gotta have that drill in his head that to be a man, this is what a man is.
So I want to touch on that because
Do you make them do chores?
Mine, yeah, they had to do chores. Yeah.
I'm talking about the grandkids.
No, I don't have to make them. No, I don't make them do chores.
I said, do
already
they do chores?
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
So-
They do just like you talked about. They have a certain amount of time to get this done, get this done, get this done. At the end of the day, now guess what? Now you can do this and relax on your tablet because you got all this stuff done. Oh, you didn't get it done? You don't get this.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just touch on that, just bringing it back to the manosphere,
So yeah, you're right.
because you said, work hard, go to school, get a good job, have a family, right? There are some parts of the manosphere that bring that up, and I think maybe it goes a little too far. Maybe it gets into the toxic world, right? But that's all about pretty much putting yourself in an attractive position to be able to have those things, right? To be able to be admitted by a school. They want you. Then after you get out of that school, to be admitted by a job, they want to hire you. And then you go into the dating world, you find a woman who wants to follow you and let you lead her. And so, I think the manosphere goes a little too far. I don't even know how to pronounce this word. I think it's hypergamy.
Yeah.
It's the belief that women always seek higher status men. That's one of the themes. Male self-improvement, fitness, money, stoic, emotional
that goes back to
suppression.
the thing we talked about on an earlier podcast. We talked, and actually we never dropped that one, where we talked about the man is judged by the 3 Bs.
Yeah, and that's this next one, the sexual market value. Both men and women are ranked based on attractiveness, income, and power. And then alpha beta dichotomy, masculinity framed as dominance versus weakness. And then it starts going into the parts that's the anti, which I think we all disagree with. That's the anti-feminine. Well, I don't know. I won't say I disagree with anti-feminism. I'm not for feminism, so maybe I am anti-feminism. But feminism blamed for the male disenfranchisement. I don't know. I don't know how you all land on that.
To me, that's an excuse.
I mean, I don't know. I think we can get into that, but then it's just like
What's an example of that?
of feminism. Let me
Like
see.
somebody that's
That,
GAY, or you talking about?
I think the way I understand feminism is just it's like this: women need more than what they've been given, and therefore we need to be maybe on the same or higher playing field as a man. We don't need men for certain things we can do ourselves.
That's extremism.
I think the culture.
Yeah, I think that's
That
maybe
goes
the
too far.
radical
Yeah.
part of
But
it.
that's the
I
radical
think
part of it.
entertainment pushed that a lot.
Yeah, so I think that's the radical part, but I think feminism just maybe at its core when it started is just that women have rights, right?
see,
And
if
women
you
are
take it-
important. Women are
Right, but see, if you take it
valued.
from a biblical point of view,
Yeah.
then the woman has a choice. She has a choice whether she wants to raise a family or whether she wants to have a career. That's biblically, that's the choice. You read Proverbs 31, it talks about the woman who chooses the career. It talks about the woman who stays home and raises her kids. It talks about a woman who helps her husband achieve certain levels of respect, a certain level of office. So basically, if you really look at it from a biblical point of view, a woman has a choice, and she has to make a choice. What do I want to be, right? The Bible doesn't say that you have to have children. The Bible doesn't say you have to get married. The Bible says, okay, like, was it Paul who said it? He said that he'd rather you be like me, right? If you're single, don't seek to be married. If you're married, don't seek to be single. But if you cannot contain yourself, then it's better to marry than to burn. And he talks about, and that burning is not hellfire. The burning is burning with passion. If you can't contain yourself and you have to have sex, it's better to marry than burn with that passion. So it means that sex outside of marriage is sin. So therefore, if you want it, you got to have it, you better be married.
And I think that's something that people don't understand, right? People think, just being with multiple women, right? I think that's probably part of the manosphere as well. And I think that's what our culture...
And that's also anti-Bible.
Yeah, and I think that's what our culture taught us. But even in the Bible, I mean, David and Solomon, they was with...
See, it was a different time, right?
But I think it was a different time because they was their wives. Now, and they were virgins at the time, and so they were connected. Now people just hooking up left and right.
But see, here's the thing. Even back then, you had far more women than you did men. Why? Because men were dying in wars. Men didn't live that long. So that was a way to
still
keep
dying.
it. But not to the same level it was back
But
then.
was that they was under a new covenant though? What?
But under the new covenant,
I mean, they was under the
old covenant.
old covenant, so
Right.
that allowed
Actually,
them to do that.
that was even before the covenant.
And wasn't nothing really going off in Solomon time? Wasn't everything great and peaceful? And he was just out here.
No, Solomon.
Let me
had
ask you a question, because I was something you said about the woman's role. I think you said that it's not necessary for her to have children. Is that what you said, or something?
She
along
has
those
a
lines?
choice.
She has a choice to have
She
children.
has a choice.
All right, I'm just trying to line it up. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I was just going to say there's a verse in the Bible that says in 1 Timothy chapter 2 verses 14, and Adam was not the one deceived; it was the woman who was deceived and became a sinner. But then it says, but a woman will be saved through childbearing, if they continue faith, love, and holiness with propriety. What do you think that means when it says that the woman's going to be
She'll be
saved through
saved.
childbearing?
It meant that she'll be saved through playing out her proper role.
Which
Right.
is childbearing, you
And-
say?
No, it's not. It's not just all childbearing, because not everybody's meant to have.
So what did
children.
Timothy mean in that? What was the whole, I can tell you what.
Well, basically, I know what you're getting at, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then to say what you're saying, that means that when Paul said that that when you're single, don't seek to be married.
Right. But I think that,
So the thing about it is, the problem you have there is, if you take it to the extreme that you're talking about that the only way a woman can fulfill her role is through childbearing, then it contradicts what he says about her choosing to serve the Lord.
but did God give her that equipment, right?
He
to
gave her
children?
that,
For
and
what?
the
Right.
Bible also says that you could be a eunuch, right? Some are made eunuchs.
Some are called to be eunuchs,
Wait,
right?
right,
Exactly,
right,
yeah.
right.
Mhm.
Some are made eunuchs by men.
Right.
Other become eunuchs for the sake of
So
the
is
gospel.
that a choice, though?
That's
by
a
a person?
choice.
So
To be a eunuch for the sake of the gospel is a choice.
I think it's a
Right?
calling. I think
it's
it's
a choice.
So what I think
But
it
you
is.
still got to choose.
That's interesting.
The
That is
Bible,
a-
tells you to stir up
Yeah.
your calling from within you, right?
Yeah.
If that is your calling, you have to choose to stir that calling up.
So
Yeah.
this is my take. On it. My take on it is, because when you go a couple verses up, it's talking about Eve and Adam and
Yep.
their relationship, and how
Yeah.
sin entered the world from what Eve did, but through bearing a child, because at that point she didn't have any child, right? And
Right.
another word says that a child is a reward,
Yeah.
Correct.
right? And so
The child is
that's
a blessing.
That's the blessing. So it was that salvation that was given to her through that child that kind of helps with that sin. That's that salvation,
And then you gotta-
bringing that life.
But then you also got to put it back in context of the time period, right? At that time period, what was their major role?
Having
Right.
babies, right?
Right.
Produce. I mean,
Right.
to make
I think it's
fill the
the same
earth.
thing.
Right. And then
But he says be fruitful.
right,
Is that,
right,
did that
right,
discontinue?
right.
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not
right.
saying it's always seen everywhere.
also
just in
too,
the context of
but
marriage.
also too, you still had women
Get that correct.
who did what?
Yeah.
Who served the Lord. They
Yeah.
dedicated their life to Christ.
Right.
Right. That's what the whole thing we got with the nuns, in the church. People dedicate their life to Christ. And
I think
Paul
context
himself
is
said,
important.
right? And Paul himself said that if you're married, then you have to dedicate a certain amount of time to your spouse. You can't give your full time to the Lord. When you're not married and you're single, you can dedicate all your time to God. So that is a choice. She chooses: am I going to do this or am I going to do that? It's still her choice.
I guess my point is, going to college and getting a career is a worldly thing.
Yeah.
Having children is a God thing. And I think women need to choose whether they're going to go after the world or go after God,
But
right?
see,
That's
that's
the
not-
way.
not-
Like
but
working
see,
becoming
no.
the CEO of Kroger's,
That's-
it may be, in this world, you may get some hand claps, but does God really care about
that's
right?
not. But see,
From-
that's
on a woman's
that's a
perspective.
problem too.
Or
There's
does
a
God
problem
want
with
you
that
to
too? The problem with that too is that's not true. That's not what the Bible says. It says that you having a career does not mean that you're not doing a godly
But
thing.
you can't take that with you to heaven, though.
No,
right?
you gotta understand something.
Yeah.
Okay. Bible says a cattle on 1,000 hills is his, right?
Yeah. And we can try to
If
get
you look
everybody
at,
involved. I know we just
let's go back to
that's
Proverbs again.
Yeah,
Go back
yeah,
to
yeah.
Proverbs 31.
Yeah, yeah.
It talks about that woman. She goes out. She looks at the field and she decides to buy.
Yeah.
She makes business decisions. She says to her family, she doesn't worry about her family being clothed because she makes sure they're clothed. They say nothing about the man making sure they're clothed. They say she makes sure they're clothed in purple and raiment. She talks about how her husband sits at the high seat with other people, with the elders.
Yeah,
Why?
yeah, probably.
To her efforts,
Mm-hmm.
right? So she's a working woman. So she is, and
But isn't she helping her husband?
Yeah,
she's helping her
providing
husband
for a household.
But see,
yeah.
she provided for a household. So it does not say seeking a job, seeking higher employment is a sin. Because God puts us
can
where
be,
He
though. I think it can
God
be.
puts us where He needs us.
If you choose to
I remember
go after
I preached
money
on that
as
one time.
opposed to a family, I think that could be a sin.
No, that's not true. If
Well,
a
going after
woman
money
has no desire to have children, that does not mean that she's committing a sin. Because she doesn't have desire for children. If she doesn't have that desire for children, then why would she go and have children?
Here's the thing. I would think so.
So what you're telling a
Yeah.
woman is that if you don't have a desire to have children, you don't have children, you committed a sin. You're
No,
going
I was
against God.
saying going after-
Oh, wait a minute. I'm not getting married. So I better have this baby, but I better find somebody to get married. I'm gonna get married whether I love this man or not, because if I don't have a baby, I'm committing a sin.
Because
That's what you're saying.
But they
That's not
still
true.
usually are sexually active. They're playing that role of I
A
don't want
woman
children,
does
I'm
not
still
have to
gonna
be sexually active. That's also a choice. A
But that's what
man
I'm
does not
saying,
have to
though,
be
is
sexually
they-
active.
I think
That's a
it's-
choice.
I think the hypothetical that's being brought up is
Yeah.
a woman who is sexually active,
Mm-hmm.
who is maybe the corporate type, who is I want to make as
That's what
much
I'm trying
money
to
as
say.
possible. Screw a husband, screw a family.
Yeah.
So what you're saying
think
then
that's
is, but see, that's not just a woman, that's a man. If a
Sure.
man chooses to
And
go
that's what I
after
was gonna say,
Mammon
the-
rather than Christ, that's still a sin. So that's not particular to women, that's particular to individuals.
But
right?
Paul
You
talks
can't-
about a woman
But
being
you may be
saved from
talking about, in
childbearing.
that
So-
instance, he's talking about a woman,
Right.
but the Bible says, put Mammon before God is a sin, period.
Yes, I
right?
agree. That's what I'm saying.
So that's what. So if you're saying that a woman chooses to put Mammon before God, yes, that's a sin. But a woman chooses a career over having kids, that's not a sin. That's not a sin because she chooses that. That's not a sin if she chooses to have a
depends,
career.
obviously, what area
And then
she's
what you're
in.
saying is all women who don't have kids.
No, I think it's a general
I
statement. I
committed
guess.
sin.
What you think about that, man? I'm gonna get some ass involved.
I just think
yeah.
I don't think it's a sin, but I also think a career-driven woman like that, they do be extra lonely because they
Right.
know they missing
Yep.
something. They missing a husband. They
Yeah.
missing a family.
But see, that's her choice, right?
Yeah, which is a bad
I don't know
choice.
if
I'm
lonely
not saying it's a
is
good choice.
It's a-
I'm not saying it's a good choice, but she chose to do this.
I mean, if she
Or
stayed
she
in
may have never met the right guy. Marrying the wrong person sometimes is worse than not being married at all.
Which one will fulfill her though? A career? Because like you're saying, if she's lonely,
It depends on the
it
individual.
ain't fulfilling you. Oh,
But
your
that- but
children
that's
will
the-
fulfill you though, right? So
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
When you hope that baby, I'm telling you something. Now, if you got some mental going on, right?
But
where
see, you're assuming
little off,
everybody
but-
has the same.
So I think
Yeah.
I think it's always a tough road when you got four guys talking about what the woman should do.
Right.
You know, it's
a woman you believe.
it's
That's what
it's
you're
always
doing.
going to be tough. But we can always talk about what we like.
Right, what
You
men
know,
should do.
you know what we like for the type of man we want and what type of woman we want our sons to be with.
Yeah.
I think that's an easier one for people
Right.
to digest. And
That's a good point.
understand.
As a man, I would say my family is the greatest blessing that I've ever had, right? Where
For
I've
sure.
had jobs working highest levels of government.
But just
the
to wrap that
family-
up, though,
Mhm.
it's the woman's choice on what she wants to do.
He said, I'm going
I
back.
was trying to roll with you about the man. Like,
I'm gonna get the last
word. This is life and times.
Yeah. No, yeah.
I should have did it.
No, you good. But no, he said, bump all that. It's still a woman's choice.
I'm gonna let you finish.
Yeah. No, it is. It's I would say, because as I
That
get
was
older,
funny.
I'm starting to see the value of having children as I become older. That's the greatest joy. Like, I'm getting older.
That's for me.
And even when I retire, ain't nobody gonna remember me as a first line supervisory of the GS 13, 14.
Right.
But my children, the things that I've done for them and I've invested in them,
Right.
that's the only thing that's
But see,
gonna
I
last me.
realized that when I was a
Yeah.
kid.
But people are confused and thinking that their money is going to be with them, or the people that are with.
And this is
It's
the-
just a deception.
the thing
Right,
about
right,
a family
right.
too
Get
is
lied to, man.
you can
You're right.
always
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
you can always make more money probably. You probably be
Yeah.
even more successful,
Sure.
have even more money,
Man.
have more cars,
Well,
bigger
yeah.
home. If you didn't have that, because you just get to focus in on it now,
Yeah.
but it's
Now,
not
I'm
going
gonna
to be
go
as
back.
fulfilling.
Absolutely.
I'm
not
not
gonna
gonna
be-
recite the stats.
Yeah.
Even I
'cause I
got
had to
boys
look them
like
up.
that. That got the cribs, the cars, but they lonely because they don't got a wife and a
They
family.
ain't got a wife. It's
See,
empty. It
to
brings
me,
separate joy.
to me,
you know,
to be
but-
frank with you, and this will probably lean more to what
And
you
the
were saying.
Manosphere teaches that
I
sometimes.
believe
They
the normal
do.
state,
Bring back.
the normal state for
Yeah.
the person, and I'm talking about as a whole, and I'm not talking about exceptions because there's always exceptions, but the normal state is marriage.
Yeah.
That's our normal state
Right.
is marriage.
Mhm.
God has designed us to be social creatures. So our normal state would be that of being married. That does not mean that everyone is called to be married, right? And that's still a choice. And sometimes people are good with being alone. But I would say our normal state would be that of a marriage. And also too, going by Pew Research and some other research polls.
But what did Jesus say real quick before you go on?
You don't
I like
see that
challenge.
these days, though.
Well, go
He
on.
upset when a man leaves his
Somebody
mom.
lost a spouse or something, like
Yeah.
if you
Right.
know what I'm saying.
Well, see, going by Pew Research, they said that couples always outperform individuals when it comes to making money.
It says, but Jesus did say, when a man leaves his mother and father, he clings to his wife.
He says, right, a man is supposed, right. But,
That's what he
but
says.
see,
That's the
but he
order.
also says, but see, that's for a person who's getting married. When a man gets married,
But he said, when he leaves his mother and father, he doesn't say
why
he
does
goes
he
to
leave
do
his
own.
mother and father?
Why does he leave his
He's
mother
leaving
and
his
father?
mother and father
Because
because
he's
they're
ready
talking
to.
about the institution of marriage. They're talking about
Right.
a man who meets a woman, now he wants to be married to her.
But he
And
finalizes that, right?
when
you know?
and when he does that, then his first loyalty is no longer to his parents.
Yeah.
His first loyalty is to his
Yeah.
mother.
I got you.
I mean,
Okay.
it's to
Might
his
need,
wife.
All right.
might need to just bring it all back together for us, Elder.
Okay. Well,
we go.
I usually like to end episode. Now,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be frank with you. These will probably be dropping 15-minute segments.
Okay.
Okay, but I would say this about this, and we're nowhere near finished with this conversation. So I'm not going to try to say we are wrapped up because it's some things we haven't even touched on yet. But I would say this, as far as this whole thing going with this thing called the manosphere, right? And that's just a term that says that these are the things that interest me, right? That's all it says. Now, there's good in it, and there's bad in it. And what I really believe is that we as parents need to safeguard our children from it. We need to go out and selectively choose what they see on the web, right?
Take the phones.
Take the phones.
Yep.
And if it means taking their phones, so be it. Now, I didn't get my kids phones because I remember when they're coming up, I told them no. I said, because see, I know you at home when you're calling me, because if you had a cell phone, you could be anywhere telling me you at home.
Right.
So I didn't want to give them no phone. But nowadays, the phone, it serves as a way to check up on your kids, to know where your kids are, to keep that line of communication open.
Locations.
The locations. But that does not mean you should give them free reign. Like
Give them
my
a pager.
no.
I take the phones. I only
No.
let them stay in there with nobody's house.
Yep.
Granddaughter has a phone.
that either.
My granddaughter has a phone, but guess what?
Them
Only
days
certain
over.
people can dial that phone, right? They got the phone. The phone is restricted. Only certain people can call it. And
Give them a little flip phone.
well, no.
Yeah.
There's certain things. It's just a regular phone, but you can put restrictions on that phone so that you can control it, and they just can't go anywhere
Kids
they
be
want to go.
crafty.
Man, yeah, they be smart. They know somebody in school that can break that. Oh, I can break
no.
that for you.
But it's like you doing your due diligence. You don't just let them just run wild.
So you're gonna have to probably give us like an outro message though.
Yeah.
Okay, and the outro message is that
To be continued.
you'd have this manosphere out there. Okay, it's both good and bad, just like anything. And any technology is both good or bad. You need to use it for the good. I would say to young men, don't go out there and just cling with anybody. You need to first find yourself a good church. First, find yourself some good Christian brothers, and if you are suffering from rejection, seek godly advice, not just some guy on there ranting and raving, telling you everything is all right and they're wrong and you're right, because you really don't know.
Yeah.
So you really need to pick out and be selective about who you listen to in that environment. Selective on what you do. Make
What
sure
age
that you-
range we talking about?
I'm talking about all age ranges. Young men, right now, I see a lot of them. They're suffering from rejection. They're suffering. They're saying that I've seen people come back and say, "Well, it's all the women's fault that I don't have a job." Okay, dude, what's your skill set? Okay, dude, what's your education? Okay, dude, how do you line up compared to these jobs that are out there?
That sound like Kevin Samuels.
I haven't heard Candace that.
That's how he was talking to her.
Right. But really, that's what it's about.
A little bit more vulgar, but you
right. But don't go on a website that says it's all the woman's fault that I don't have a job.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know we could go into it for a long time, but I think it is shifting. I think it started around that Kevin Samuels time, and there's been other people who've come up. We haven't seen a lot of I haven't seen too many of the Christian leaders in that space though that talk like that. So we'll definitely have to.
I seen some good. You heard Anti-Names?
He live in Michigan.
Yeah,
right?
I watch him. He gets some good.
Is he more along those same lines that we were just talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Because I do believe this. I do believe the problem that we have as men is men and mothers, in the sense that as men we're not teaching our children and our sons to be men, right? How many of us were actually taught that as a man you need to do this, and this, so you can support your family. Make sure you get a good education. Make sure you do this. Make sure you do these things.
All right, we gotta go.
You gotta go.
All right.
We'll pick this up on the next podcast.
All right.
To be continued.
To be continued.